How's it going, everyone? This is DoomKid. Today I'm here to discuss 4 common myths about classic Doom. Now, being as old as it is, naturally classic Doom has some myths around it, and these were either just repeated by people who said them from ignorance or didn't know, or they were just commonly spread around on message boards and BBSs at the time. And so I want to go ahead and dispel those, because they've sort of ingrained themselves into the Doom zeitgeist, and I need to stop that. So let's go ahead and get into it. Myth number 1. Doom was single player only upon its initial release. Actually, multiplayer was planned for the original Doom from the very start. People who are interested in the history of id Software probably already know that John Romero was an avid deathmatcher. But did you know that he actually coined the term deathmatch to refer to PvP in Doom? It's a term still used to this very day, and Doom was actually the first game to use frag to refer to a kill as well. And this remained a common term through the 90s. But at some point around the turn of the century, games more or less stopped using the term frag, and they started using the term kill. But these terms were come up with essentially in a vacuum, because at this point, no other FPS game had PvP multiplayer, let alone an international multiplayer scene like was spawned by Doom. Now, that's all well and good, but it doesn't necessarily mean the 1.0 version of Doom, released in December of 1993, came with multiplayer packed in. To prove that, we'll just refer to the innards of the game itself. Okay, so here we have E1M1 of the December 1993 version of Doom, and what's that I see there? Yes, of course, it's multiplayer starts. As of the day of release, 2 people could start up a LAN game and blast through Doom together. It may seem common or even passé at this point, astonishingly, but back then it was revolutionary. It was even possible to play Doom remotely through a serial connection, so you and your friend down the road could blast demons from the comfort of your own bedroom. And I think that's awesome, because that's actually been a staple of gaming ever since. As you might expect, this was a shock to the world of gaming. From Wikipedia, Doom had a massive global impact. It popularized the business model of online distribution, it popularized the FPS genre of gameplay and spawned a gaming subculture. It even pioneered the technologies of immersive 3D graphics, networked multiplayer gaming, and support for customized add-ons and modifications via packaged files in a data archive, which are now called downloadable content. So basically they're saying there the first DLCs were basically WADs, and that Doom revolutionized multiplayer, networked multiplayer gaming, which, you know, that kind of proves that it had it in there from the start. I mean, honestly, it doesn't even need to be said how influential Doom is. Most people realize that. But the multiplayer is still going strong to this very day. And I actually have a video of how to play multiplayer classic Doom if you're interested. I'll go ahead and link that in the description, because it's really fun and you should totally get in on it. But yeah, it's actually been a part of Doom since December 93. For those of you who are skeptical about Doom being designed around multiplayer from early on, I'll refer you to some footage from the early alpha builds of Doom from mid-1993. Even this far back, you can see that there are 4 Marine starting points present. There's some controversy around this, as some claim the other 3 Marines were meant to be your CPU allies, as originally planned in the Doom Bible, but considering they were scrapping ideas from the Doom Bible constantly throughout development, to me it seems clear that these are the starts for the other 3 players if you're in multiplayer mode. No other element of the planned allies was included beyond the very first build from February of 1993, with less than 2 months of work done, and even then the reference is only made via text. With all this, I think it's safe to conclude that Doom was designed with multiplayer in mind from very early in the development cycle. Myth number 2. Doom was meant to be played with the keyboard only in the original release. This myth is almost as common as the no multiplayer at launch myth. Now, to be clear, keyboard-only players are rare these days, but even with that, you'll commonly hear people repeating the myth that, back in the good old days, everyone had to get good using the clunky old keyboard. I've even heard people say this is the reason that Doom 1 is relatively easy by modern standards. It's a consequence of them designing for keyboard-only play. As far as I'm concerned, that is simply false. My theory is that Doom is kind of easy to modern players because it was very early on in the spectrum of FPS games. The market was not super familiar with this format, and the developers knew it, so they designed the game accordingly, in a way that's accessible to most people. My evidence for this is how hard and complex Doom 2 is by comparison. Anyway, back to the main point. To prove Doom had mouse support from square one, all we have to do is once again refer to the original shareware release from 1993. After we install the game, rather than simply typing c/doom/doom.exe like a sugar-high caveman who's so eager he's about to piss himself, we go to setup.exe instead to make sure everything is configured right before we dive in. Here we can see our sound options and our control options, and as you can see, mouse control is indeed an option. Now, as a kid, I jumped right in like a spaz, as I just described, and I'm sure many others did back in the mid-90s as well. When you first get your hands on a copy of Doom, it's really hard not to just jump right in. It wasn't until 2002 or so, when my Counter-Strike playing brother introduced me to the WSDA format, that I realized I could have used the mouse all along. My skill quite literally doubled overnight. As a testament to this, you can see that the demos for the original Doom, recorded by Romero himself, are being played using mouse input. Smooth turning and movement like that is simply not possible with a keyboard only. I want to give a shout out here to the wonderful Doom community Fraggle, who actually proved these demos were recorded using a mouse through demo analysis, as opposed to using a joystick or a gamepad or keyboard or whatever else. So the next time your 90s try-hard friend who's stuck in the past tries to give you shit about using mouse and keyboard in Doom, give him the middle finger salute and let him know that it's been a part of Doom since day one. Myth number 3. Doom is 2D, not 3D. This is the most common of the entire bunch. This is actually one I've done a video on before, so if you haven't seen that and want to check it out, a link is in the description for that one as well. But to give a brief summary, despite having a bird's eye map, every object in Doom is operating in a three-dimensional space. Every actor has a hitbox with 3 dimensions. Every actor can travel upward on the Z-axis by riding lifts, or downward on the Z-axis by jumping from any height, and then proceeding to zip around on the X and Y axes. Fireballs with a Z height higher than that of the player pass right overhead, since there are 3 dimensions for it to move in. Doom's engine does not require a 3D graphics card, that's true, but since when has that been a requirement for a game to have 3 dimensions? It's worth noting that all the objects in Doom are represented by 2-dimensional sprites, but each one of these sprites in itself is a representation of a 3D invisible hitbox, which projectiles can travel under, over, and around. Good luck doing that with only 2 dimensions. Myth number 4. Doom is freeware or abandonware. Another commonly shared myth. Doom is still a copyrighted game. This should be obvious to just about anyone, as they're still making the series to this very day. I mean, shit, a new Doom is coming soon. But being old does not mean something is no longer copyrighted, unfortunately. As much as I personally wish it were the case, something being old doesn't invalidate that. If that was true, Super Mario Bros. On NES would be free to share and download. I mean, it is if you're an illegal pirater, but it's actually not, legally speaking. If you're really, really cheap and you have to get a free alternative to Doom, there is actually a project called Free Doom, which is made in the Doom engine, but it's using new sprites and graphics and sounds and stuff. So it's not copyright infringing in any way, since the engine itself isn't what's copyrighted, it's the assets, the graphic and sound and music assets used within that engine. And I mean, fuck, it would be kind of weird for them to pick on copyright anyway, since Doom's entire soundtrack is pretty much copyright infringement, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, there you have it. 4 common myths debunked. I hope you all enjoyed this. If you did, then please consider checking out doomworld.com and the other community websites to get into the still thriving Doom community. Also, please consider donating to my Patreon. I've made tons and tons of Doom maps and mods over the years. I host a multiplayer Doom server called doomshack.org. You can play with other people internationally. You can upload your own WADs and mods for free. There's a lot you can do there. I've actually made a bunch of MIDI files as well, although I've been kind of lazy on that lately. I just generally do a lot of Doomy stuff. I make a lot of Doomy content, And if you like that and you want more of it, please consider throwing $1 or $2 my way. It'll encourage me to pump out more content, and I'm a poor piece of shit anyway. If you give me some, I'll be happy. I'll include your name in credits for YouTube videos and text files accompanying future Doom mods and stuff, because it'll really mean a lot to me. Like, I know that money is hard to come by for a lot of people, so if you have something to throw my way, I really appreciate it. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. I hope this was informative for you, and please subscribe if you like this. Thanks a bunch.